section 13.6, we want to look at three very special angles and how to define the trig ratios for these angles. We're going to be looking at the 30-degree angle, the 60-degree angle, and the 45-degree angle. So this triangle, this 30, 60, 90 triangle that we sometimes refer to, is made by taking an equilateral triangle with each side S. Each angle would be 60. If you were to cut that triangle in half, then you would see here on the right that you have this triangle with, on the left side of that has a 60-degree angle, a 30-degree angle, and then you have half of that bottom side. So we're looking at S over 2, half of whatever that side is. And you can see in this divided equilateral triangle that the side S is now a hypotenuse of a right triangle. So if we look very specifically just at that half triangle, that half of the equilateral triangle, we get this 30, 60, 90 triangle. And we can put any value that we want for our hypotenuse, but it always will be the case that the side across from the 30-degree angle will always be half. And you can see on the right why that is, because we are cutting an equilateral triangle in half here. So there's always this relationship happening between the 30-degree angle and across from it will be half of the hypotenuse. And then whatever that value of half the hypotenuse is, if we were to use Pythagorean theorem, we will always get the half value times the square root of 3. And so if we were to reduce these, you can always think of this being a hypotenuse of 2, the small side of 1, and the long side, or the long leg, of square root of 3. Let's do our trig ratios for the 30 and 60-degree angle. So let's focus first on this 30-degree angle. Sine is going to be the opposite over hypotenuse. So the sine of 30 degrees is always going to be equal to 1/2. The cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse, and so we would have square root of 3 over 2. And then tangent is always opposite over adjacent, so it would be 1 over the square root of 3. Now cotangent you find by doing the reciprocal of tangent. So you just do 1 divided by 1 over square root of 3, or you can think of that as just flipping the fraction and we get square root of 3 over 1. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so that's 2 over the square root of 3, and cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so that would be 2 over 1. Now if instead of the 30-degree angle we looked at the 60-degree angle, now the sine would be the opposite of that angle, which is square root of 3 over the hypotenuse of 2. Cosine would be adjacent over hypotenuse, or 1/2, and tangent would be the opposite over the adjacent. That's not a 2, sorry. Opposite over adjacent, that would be square root of 3 over 1, or just square root of 3. Now cotangent, we do the reciprocal of tangent, so that's 1 over square root of 3. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, that's 2 over 1. And cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, so we have 2 over the square root of 3. So these 30-degree and 60-degree angles do come up an awful lot, particularly because it's found by cutting an equilateral triangle in half. And so it's helpful to have these values readily available for you. Now we also have a 45, 45, 90 triangle, which is going to happen anytime you have an isosceles right triangle. So no matter what the side lengths are, using Pythagorean theorem, you'll always get this ratio 1, 1 for the legs, and square root of 2. 1 squared plus 1 squared equals the hypotenuse squared, and so you're looking at 2 equals c squared, and so the square root of 2 would have to be c. Now, using this triangle, it doesn't matter which 45-degree angle we look at because both of them have an adjacent and an opposite of 1. So I'm just going to use that 45-degree angle, and so here the sine, opposite over hypotenuse, 1 over square root of 2. Cosine would be opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, but that's also 1 over the square root of 2. And tangent is just 1 because it'd be opposite over adjacent, which is 1 over 1. So the reciprocal of 1 is still 1. The reciprocal of cosine gives a secant, and that's just square root of 2 or square root of 2 over 1. And cosecant is also square root of 2 or square root of 2 over 1. If we don't have a 30, 60, or 45 degree angle that we're trying to evaluate, we would use a calculator. So the first thing you'll need to do is to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. So degree mode, if you're using a scientific calculator, you should see somewhere in the screen DEG. If it says RAD, you need to change the mode. And if you're not sure how to change the mode on your calculator, just send me an email and let me know what calculator you're using and I can help answer that question for you. If you're using a TI-84, where you'll go is you'll hit mode, which is there in the upper left. And on the third or fourth line, you'll see an option for radian or degree. So scroll down to that line and then arrow over so that on degree it's flashing and hit enter. Now you'd hit second and that mode button again to quit out of that screen. So just to check to make sure that your calculator is giving you the right answer, find the sign button on your calculator, SIN, and then most of them will come with a parentheses. Type in 20 degrees, so you can just type in the 20, close the parentheses and hit enter. You should get 0.342. If you don't, you're probably in the wrong mode. So if you aren't getting that answer, you can either YouTube your calculator to get into degree mode or send me a message. And so just to continue, we have to look at how to find all 6 of the trig functions. And so sine, cosine, and tangent will have their own button, but cotangent, secant, and cosecant do not. So the way you find cotangent of 65 degrees is you do 1 divided by the tangent of 65 degrees. So in your calculator, do 1 divided by, then hit the tangent button, and then type in 65 and hit enter. You should get 0.466. Same for secant of 65 degrees. It's 1 divided by the cosine of 65 degrees. And that should give you 2.366. And then cosecant of 65 degrees is 1 over the sine of 65 degrees. So 1 divided by sine 65, you get 1.103. So again, just check to make sure that you're able to get these values out of your calculator. And just to reemphasize, sine, cosine, and tangent will have a button freely available for you to use on your calculator. But cotangent, you have to do 1 divided by tangent. Secant, you have to do 1 divided by cosine. And cosecant, you have to do 1 divided by sine.